Well, this week's business personality is the Chief Executive Officer of the Colombo Stock Exchange. We're honored to have you here with us, Mr. Rajeeva Bandaranaike.
Hello.
A very good evening to you.
Good evening.
And first and foremost, let's touch on the stock market itself. How has it fared this year?
Yeah, let me probably begin last year, where we had a initial setback soon after the first lockdown in May, where the price indices somewhat took a significant beating immediately once the market opened after the first lockdown. But it recovered since then quite rapidly, I would say, last year. To end the year, the all share price index grew by as much as about 7% last year. If you take this year, we have seen the market sustaining its momentum, and year to date, the all share price index, which measures the movement of all the companies that are listed, we have seen a growth in excess of 12% year to date on the all share price index. And if you take the S&P SL20 price index, which measures the movement of a selected group of 20 companies, that is the top 20 in terms of size and liquidity, there the index had grown year to date by over 16%. So we have seen the market momentum and the prices holding right throughout this year and been very active. Apart from that, if you look at the volumes, again, if you look at the daily turnover average, we are year to date we are averaging something like over 4 billion a day, which is almost a doubling of last year. Of course, the last 2 months have been something like a 2 billion a day, but nevertheless, the volumes have been very significantly more than what we have seen earlier. Even if you look at the number of transactions, say if you look at the period prior to 2019, for example, for the last 5 years prior, we were averaging something like 5,000 trades a day at a maximum. But if you look at it today, we are averaging something between 22,000 to 25,000 trades a day, almost a five-fold increase. So if you look at all the indicators and the numbers, there has been a growth in all of that.
That certainly is positive, and today's topic would be about the current environment and developments of the Sri Lanka stock market overall. So we are facing a global pandemic right now. And how has the Colombo Stock Exchange faced the present challenge of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think like all other businesses, we have had to face it and overcome the challenges. I think initially there was a setback where the market also had to close when the first lockdown was imposed. But I think as an industry, if you take the stock exchange as well as the market intermediaries like the stockbrokers, everyone as an industry evolved very quickly in a very short space of time to move to a complete remote working environment. And all the systems, the processes were put into place to enable the stock market to operate in the event of a future lockdown. And when the second and the third lockdown and subsequent lockdowns did eventually happen, as a market we kept open and we operated completely remotely. I think ours is an industry which is a good example how we have leveraged on technology and faced up to a very unusual situation and managed to overcome it. So if you take the situation today, even with all the travel restrictions, you find that majority of the stockbrokers are operating completely remotely without ever having to come physically. We have enabled investors also to conduct all of their trading activity remotely without the need to physically visit a stockbroking company. And the biggest endorsement is that despite the lockdown, despite the travel restrictions, we have seen record volumes in the market, and all through domestic investors. So it's not even foreign. So we can see even the domestic investors have evolved to an extent that they are conducting their affairs remotely. So if you let the stock exchange on certain days, it's only the security guards. We open the market remotely, we operate it and shut it down and do all the processing as well. So to that extent, I think as an industry, we are very happy that we have evolved to an extent that we have faced up to the challenges of the pandemic very well. keeping in mind, I think, the health and safety concerns of staff of both the brokers as well as the exchange. And I must say that also the Securities and Exchange Commission played a key role in giving leadership to a digitization initiative, which resulted in us operating.
Exactly, and we see a lot of people getting into the digitization process as well, but it certainly takes time. And how has the market been affected by the same?
So as a result, I think, as I did mention earlier, the market has been quite resilient. And there I would like to talk about how the companies have performed. Now, with the pandemic, companies like any other businesses have had their share of problems. But again, we saw our corporate sector, the resilience of our corporate sector, where they once again, I think, evolved very quickly to come on top of the challenge of the pandemic and all of the other um, business risks associated with the pandemic. And we have seen record profitability in the corporate sector. If you take the last quarter profits has been the highest on record despite the pandemic. So you can see how well the corporates have really fought back to get back on and maintain their bottom line. Then if you look at the annual earnings of companies, if you look at the annual audited accounts, there is a 5% growth from last year to the last financial year. So there again, even in the annual accounts, there is a increase, quite a substantial increase in a sense when you take it as at an aggregate level. So corporates, I think, have really been resilient and responded very well. As a result, we have seen the market, performing.
Well, speaking of digitalization, and digitization takes a whole process, it's a whole process, and you've been working on it ever since we have faced a lockdown. So, with the introduction of the app, what are the advancements you have introduced so far in the Colombo Stock Exchange app?
Yeah, so what the app has done is that it has enabled us to onboard new clients without them having the need to visit a stockbroking company. So earlier there was this form filling, the manual documentation, and the need to physically hand over the documents. So with the app, we have enabled any person from any part of Sri Lanka to use the app and fill up your personal details, sign all the agreements, the relevant agreements digitally, submit your identification documents, again take a photograph, etc., take a photograph of your identity card and submit it digitally to your stockbroker. And what we did is we also established a connection with the Department of the Register of Persons, the identity card office, where once the identity and the documents are submitted, we do a verification online with the identity card office to verify the identity cards to conform with the Know Your Client regulations. So once the identity is verified from the source itself, then we are certain that it is a genuine application. So that extent, all that is now done seamlessly and remotely. And once those details are verified, then the broker will open the account, grant access to the automated trading system, and enable a person then to participate in market activity, look at prices, online prices, do your trading activity, and then with internet banking, you can transfer your money, the funds, to your broker digitally. So you don't need to physically visit a stockbroking office anymore. To that extent, the mobile app has been very useful and enable us to operate, and we have seen a 70% growth in the number of new accounts as a result of the mobile app. And the most significant factor is that we have seen a younger segment of investors. Traditionally, we have the over 50s in the market. Now we have seen a younger segment below 40. A bulk of 80% of the new accounts are below 40 years of age.
So we see new investors coming on board because of the technological advancement. And if you may also enlighten our viewers who are interested in getting into this, how could one get into the stock market and be involved through this app, and maybe the advantages of it?
Yeah, so I think you can very easily download the mobile app either through your Android phone or your iPhone by typing the Colombo Stock Exchange mobile app. and once you download it, you have all the required details within the app, plus like a tutorial as well, a video which will guide you as to how to use the app and what you need to do to open an account. Now inside the app itself, we have lots of information. For example, information pertaining to what is the stock market, to how to invest in a stock market, how do you select a stock broker, how do you reach out to a stock broker, a list of stock brokers for you to experience them, the relevant contact numbers. Then also we have given all market related information, like for example research reports of companies, other videos which will help you to better understand the market. So the mobile app in fact is a one-stop shop. It will give you a snapshot of all you need to do as to how to get into the market, and we also have hosted a simplified video as to how to navigate the mobile app and what are the like initial steps as to get to the market and open an account and select a broker, meet a broker, and establish a relationship. So it is to that extent simplified, and we have brought it to the home of the investor itself. So either using your iPad or your laptop or your PC or your mobile, you can do all of the trading activities. So it's at your fingertips basically.
It's just a click away basically.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bandaranaike, if you may also highlight the advantages of getting into this.
Yeah, so if you look at stock markets, why are people now opting for the stock market? Now, if as an individual, particularly domestic investor, now much of our activity, 80 to 85% is domestic, mostly individuals. The reason is that as an individual, you have very few options to park your money and earn a return. As you know, fixed deposits and the interest rates have come down to single digit, and therefore people are looking for options. What are the other options that one has to earn a better return? Now I did indicate that for example, the all share price index has given a return year to date, quite a significant, over 12% return year to date. So people are looking at ways and means where they can get higher returns, and the stock market is now one place which can give you much higher returns than you would from a fixed income instrument as a fixed deposit or a treasury bill, etc. So as a result, market is now proving to be avenue of investment where you can get higher returns. So there are two ways you can get returns. One is through the increase in share prices, so capital appreciation. With the share prices moving up or increasing, then you can have a capital gain in your portfolio. Other than that, companies also pay annual dividends, or twice a year they pay dividends based on their profits. So currently the dividend yield is about 2.6%, which is comparatively higher than most other markets in the region. India, for example, is about 1.5%. So comparatively, our dividend yield is also quite high and attractive. So there again is another form where investors can get a better return. So one is through the increase in share prices through capital gains, and again from dividends. So if you really add all that up, the total returns in the market fairly outweigh some of the other forms of investment that are available in terms of even directly investing in money markets or fixed income instruments, other than other traditional forms of investing in gold or real estate, which are less liquid. It takes a longer time to liquidate those. So the market has proven to be investment where people can get in very fast, exit when you want to. So it's a very easy form of converting the shares into cash, because it's liquid and you can exit the market very easily by selling the shares whenever you want to. So the ease of entry and exit is also available in the market. So all those factors combined has made this an attractive proposition for investors, particularly locally.
And you did mention that you've noticed a few listings in the year 2021. So how do you see the appetite among companies to be listed under the Colombo Stock Exchange?
Yeah, I think with the activation of the market, particularly the interest rate and some of the activity, we have also seen the primary market getting reactivated. That is the new issues and the IPOs. Now, if you look at this year, we had the largest IPO of since 2011 taking place this year, and that particular IPO is an energy company. It was oversubscribed by 8 times. Then it was followed soon after by 2 other companies which were also oversubscribed on the opening day itself. So we can see that there has been an appetite, or there's a growing appetite among companies to come back to capital markets to raise funds, market-based funds, because there's a need for it, and they feel that the pricing is also right. Valuations in terms of the prices is attractive enough. For example, the price earnings ratio, which is about 14 and a half times, it is attractive enough for companies to consider listing, because that share price is adequate for them to look at the market. Then we have also seen a lot of companies opting for to raise debentures or debt issues, and we have also seen the government, public utilities reaching out for market-based funding. Now, for example, the Ceylon Electricity Board went in for a listed debenture just very recently. So we are seeing even public utilities now reaching out for market-based funding, because it makes sense for them to do so. So we have seen a reactivation of the primary market, both in terms of debt and equity. And recently we also had the government also announcing the fact that they are looking at raising capital through the market for state-owned enterprises as well. So in all, I think yes, there is an appetite for new listings, and there's appetite among investors also to invest in those companies. And the 3 issues that we had, which were oversubscribed, in respect of all 3 issues, we have seen the market price being traded higher than the price that it was issued. So already investors who have invested in those companies have made a capital gain.
They made
so
a profit.
Which is they
Yes.
made a profit already.
And also, the first Empower Board listing was recently celebrated. So, what is the importance of SMEs to raise funds via the Colombo Stock Exchange?
Yeah, we felt that there was a gap when we looked at the listings, because we have enabled the large companies on the main board. Then we have the Dirisavi board for the medium-sized companies. We have opened up a multi-currency board for those wishing to raise US dollar denominated debt and for foreign companies. But there's we didn't have provision for a board that SMEs could reach out. And one of the key challenges that SME companies have is the need for capital. So traditionally they are locked in for bank funding.
Exactly.
And there is a need sometimes for them to reduce their debt, and we have now provided a mechanism for those SME companies to convert some of the expensive debt into equity. So the SME board is providing that platform where they can retire some of this debt through raising equity. And I think we're very happy that the SME board was activated, and we had the first SME company listing very recently, and I think there are a couple of more in the pipeline. We are doing a lot of work with SMEs. We conduct a lot of forums together with regional chambers, addressing SMEs and educating SME companies of the facility for them to reach stock markets and to raise capital through the stock market. And because the criteria and the continuing listing requirements, the rules are quite different to SME companies. So it's not as stringent as the main board and the second Dirisavi board. So therefore, it will enable those companies also to easily obtain a listing. And we have, in addition, introduced a special category of people called sponsors. Those sponsor institutions will do hand holding for the SME company, so that to guide them through the listing process, and they are necessarily, it's mandatory, they need to handhold them for a period of 2 years, so that in order to induct the company, the SME company, into public market. Yeah.
Right, and the initiatives the Colombo Stock Exchange has taken to promote the Empower Board and its value to SMEs. Now, as you did mention, Mr. Bandaranaike, they find it very difficult with loans, and they have a lot going on. And we also see SME, or small and medium scale entrepreneurs, flourishing from the rural areas as well. So how do you intend to educate them on this and spread awareness to the people living in the rural areas as well?
Yeah, so if you look at the SME sector, I think bulk of our businesses are SME, and that's the reason why we thought we also should have a facility to encourage that sector to benefit from the operation of a stock market. There again, what we did is actually take this concept of the SME board to areas outside Colombo, and I said in all the we are maintaining 8 branch offices in 8 provinces. Through those branch offices, we have been conducting workshops, seminars targeted at companies in the regions. So there again, we are teamed up with the regional chambers, and as an ongoing exercise, we do engage companies that are in those regions, and we have been doing education sessions and various seminars and other engagements with those companies to mostly educate them on the aspects of how they can obtain market-based funding. And we have registered, I think, over 12 sponsor institutions. So we take those sponsor institutions and we introduce those sponsor institutions to prospective SME companies so that they can work with those sponsor institutions and look at how they can prepare their companies for eventual listing. They may not be quite ready immediately, so there is some preparation that is necessary, and I think the sponsor institutions give them the required knowledge and handhold them through this process. So that process is ongoing and it's happening.
Yeah. Right. And also in terms of regulations, has the Colombo Stock Exchange introduced any new or amended existing rules to facilitate a robust environment that is also conducive for companies to list in the Colombo Stock Exchange?
Yeah, so what we did in order to encourage new listings, we in the rules we expanded the criteria for companies to list. So traditionally, one of the main criteria was profitability. So you go on, for example, a 3-year profit record. But what we did is that after doing some research and discussions with companies, we expanded on the criteria for listings, enabling companies also, apart from the profitability test and the profitability criteria, to also list based on their revenue or their cash flows. So it's a wider choice that is now given to companies, which will enable a wider choice of companies also to benefit from these amendments to rules that we have done. So I think one of the key catalysts, I think, for encouraging companies to come up with IPOs and to raise capital is through the expansion of this listing criteria. I think that is also working well. It will also enable especially tech companies to also reach out to the capital market for their funding requirements.
And how have these regulations seen flexibility during this COVID pandemic season?
We have, and in fact, I'll give you a classic example. When the pandemic hit, when the lockdowns happened, companies have had issues in preparing their quarterly statements, preparing their audited accounts, financial statements. So what we did is we gave a leeway and more time and space for companies to, for example, submit their annual accounts, their quarterly reporting, quarterly reports, etc. So in that sense, a lot of the enforcement for companies, we have been flexible and giving added time for companies to really comply with some of those requirements. So we are not being sticking to the exact deadline which is mentioned in the rules, but we are given that flexibility to enable companies more time to from submission of accounts, for giving more time, for example, to finalize when they have a rights issue. We have given added time for rights issues. We have given added time even when there's IPO to commence trading. So in all the aspects where listed companies do transact with the stock exchange, we have been flexible to give a be very sensitive to their needs, and at every time we have responded by granting them some concessions in order for them to overcome some of these challenges as well.
I think given the situation, they just need some kind of a relief. Otherwise, it's going to be very tough on them as well. So we see that short selling and clearing stocks are active in other countries, in foreign countries. So any plans on introducing that in our country as well?
Yeah, so we are just about to move into what we call a delivery versus payment system. Now we operate on a rather funny system where when a when an investor sells shares, the shares immediately move out of the seller's account into the buyer's account. Now there the anomaly is that as a buyer, without paying for the shares, you get immediate custody. Whereas as a seller, you part with your asset and you get paid 3 days later, and there's no one to really guarantee it. Of course, I think that stockbrokers have been doing a excellent service for the last 35 years, where they have ensured that there has been absolutely no default in terms of settling sellers. But as a system, it is not a robust, acceptable system. So the ideal system is like in any other commodity, where you exchange the goods for money. So you deliver when you pay. That's what we know as delivery versus payment. So what we're doing now is moving to a system where the shares will move only on payment. So the settlement day for stock market transaction is T plus 3 after 3 days. So right now on T day itself, trade day shares instantly move, but now from by about July, I think we are hoping to launch this. We are going to move to a system where shares will move only on payment day. So on payment day, it's delivery versus payment. So you deliver when you pay.
There's more
so
assurance.
yeah, there is more comfort for
More
sellers,
comfort,
because
yes.
I'm parting with my asset and I get paid when I part with my asset. But that does not change our present system or the ability of someone to sell shares immediately. So you can keep buying and selling immediately. So that will not be affected in any way by this change. The second change that will happen is about the short selling that you did mention. Now we are not permitting short selling, but in the DVP system we are decoupling the trading system part of it from the depository of where the shares are held. So technically one can sell something you don't have in the morning, but you need to fulfill it by end of the day, otherwise there are going to be severe penalties. So you really can take that risk. So it's a risk that you need to take very carefully. If you do sell something that you don't have, you necessarily have to buy it from the market before trading closes at 2:30. So that ability is there, but there will be a lot of controls imposed even by stockbrokers themselves to ensure that it's not violated or in any sense. But one could make use of a market opportunity. If you are very sure that the price of a share is going to drop, you can immediately sell it at a higher price and buy it back at a lower cost, which means you can make some profit off it, and you have this happening in other markets. But we are not going to have rules and allow short selling per se, but one can do that under this new system, provided all the safeguards are met, etc.
As long as you do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also we have seen an outflow of foreign funds of about 26 billion rupees. So what are the initiatives that the Colombo Stock Exchange has taken to attract foreign funds coming into the country?
Yeah, when you talk about foreign investors, has been, I think, in our market since the early 1990s. So they had been a mainstay, and these are what we call hot money flows. They come in and they go out as fast as they come in, but they keep coming in as well. And if you take the portfolio today, I think about 20-25% of all the shares that are in the market is held by foreigners still. From time to time, we have had these cycles of foreigners selling, but they eventually come back as well. So it's very cyclical in a sense. So I think we need not be too concerned about the outflows, because those eventually have a tendency to come back because they see value, and we have seen, despite the sellout, we have seen significant investments and buying as well into the market. Now recently we had a virtual forum, the first ever virtual forum for investors, where there is a significant interest among foreign investors as well. There are over 4,500 registrants for this virtual event, which was a joint initiative by the Chamber of Commerce, the BOI, and the Stock Exchange, purely with the intention of attracting foreign investors. So there we featured over 20 listed companies, plus for foreign direct investments, a whole heap of projects that are available for foreign investment. So I think it was a good forum where we showcased Sri Lanka in a holistic manner, both in terms of foreign direct investments, including the port city, as well as the opportunities available in listed companies in the stock exchange.
So, do you see Sri Lanka in this current environment as a country viable for foreign investors to invest in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential. We are unfortunately not talking the positives and mostly used to highlighting the negatives. But if you really look at the forum, there are over 100 speakers, so many projects, and if you go through, it's all available on YouTube. If you look at the quantum of projects and the investment opportunities, you will be amazed, and that's why we titled it as Growth Haven, Asia's Growth Haven, because there's so much of opportunity within in Sri Lanka. If you look at it in all sectors, if you look at manufacturing, the leisure sector, if you look at the energy sector, the logistics, so there's a whole heap of windows of opportunity for foreign investors to come here, set up, and get into partnership with local companies, for the state sector to partner with the private sector, and an abundance, I think, of opportunities. We are geographically very well placed. We have some two excellent deep sea ports that have been set up. So in terms of opportunity, there is no, we are probably better off than some of the financial centers that have emerged recently in terms of resources and what we can offer. So I think there is a dire need for us to go out there and communicate these opportunities out, and I think this virtual forum really provided that.
And do you see a lot of youth getting into this? And how about this being taught from a young age to the generation to come?
Yeah, I think in terms of entrepreneurship, and you are talking about entrepreneurship, so we must get out of this mindset where young people start going into state sector jobs or private sector jobs and working. And I think we should be encouraging more entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, and that's the only way to grow our country, to grow our businesses. And we are seeing a startup culture. We are seeing more young people get into startup, which is a very, very good thing. And I think there should be a cohesive national plan to encourage entrepreneurship. And that's what I think at school level, at university, we should be teaching and encouraging young people to set up their own businesses. And then as a national initiative, some support should be given in terms of funding such startups and having a national program to support entrepreneurs to really get into the mainstream of businesses. I think that's probably the way forward for Sri Lanka.
Exactly, and for them to get into it, it's a lot of risk. And as you very correctly mentioned, I think there is funding, if there is an assurance, or if they have some sort of support, I think we'll see a lot of entrepreneurs coming up.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of young people with some very good ideas, but they should be supported and encouraged. And I think it's all our responsibility as commercial enterprises as well as state sector to support them and to grow them. Yeah.
Exactly, and with this pandemic also, we've noticed a lot of small businesses coming up where you could just make deliveries. So I think we are in the way forward, so hoping that this changes, and also having an application for them to be involved in the Colombo Stock Exchange just a click away is all certainly a way to head forward. And we've come towards the latter part of the program as well. So what are the main infrastructural changes the Colombo Stock Exchange intends on implementing?
So if I highlight some of it, quite apart from the infrastructure itself in terms of risk management, I spoke about the delivery versus payment system, which is going to improve the risk profile of the market. We are also thinking of diversifying the product portfolio. So traditionally, we have been having shares and a comparatively small debt market, corporate debt as instruments, but we are looking at expanding this product portfolio to give a wider choice to investors. One is the real estate investment trust, the REITs, which is a kind of a unit trust which enables investors to take ownership in real estate, and that through the market. So the legal framework and the rules have been gazetted. We are waiting for some of the tax reforms to be also gazetted, and hopefully we will see a couple of project owners issuing REITs, which will be another instrument where investors can invest in real estate through the stock market. And we feel that real estate being traditionally a asset class that a lot of Sri Lankans like, understand, so we feel that will be a popular instrument. We are also coming up with a over-the-counter market for corporate debt. Right now, when you buy corporate debt, there is no secondary market created. So we are creating a over-the-counter market for corporate debt, and we're hoping that that will also give some opportunity for those who have an appetite for corporate debt to trade in corporate debt. We are also coming up with a gold product where a gold-backed paper is being actively discussed. We are working and discussing with the banks as we speak to come up with a product, because once again gold is something that a lot of Sri Lankans invest in. They like the product, they know the product. So again, a market-based product for gold. So in that manner, we've trying to expand the product portfolio so that as an investor, you will have a choice of several asset classes. You not only have shares, you have debt, you have other asset classes like real estate, gold as well, under one account, one CDS account, and you can diversify your product portfolio so that depending on the timing of the environment, you can shift your portfolio from shares. When shares are doing well, you get into shares. When fixed income interest rates are high, you shift into
they have
fixed
more
income.
options.
They have more options.
Right.
If gold is prices are good, then you shift your portfolio into gold. So you give wide options.
So is it easy, the shifting process?
What we're hoping to do is to use the same CDS account, so that you use one account to have different asset classes and to tie it all in. So that we'll try to make it as convenient as possible for investors to switch from one asset class to another.
So that's what's in the pipeline.
Yes.
How long will this take?
As I said, REITs, it's already done.
Right.
And we have seen the regulations being issued. We are waiting for the taxes to be gazetted. In terms of gold, we are doing the product design with the bank, so it might be a slightly longer, maybe a 3 to 6 months window. The OTC market for corporate debt, again, we are waiting regulatory approvals, the systems, etc. have been done. I think the progress is quite good, so we're hoping that those products can be launched before the end of this year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajeeva Bandaranaike, for talking to us and enlightening us on what's in the pipeline and what people can gain out of being a part of the Colombo Stock Exchange or getting their companies listed in the Colombo Stock Exchange. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
And with that, we conclude this week's edition of Business Today.